Borushiki versus Kawashiki seems to be the major fight that Ikemoto is teasing us about. But this time, it won't end in the same way that it did previously. This fight is the point of no return, and I'll explain why in this video. We have examined almost every single possibility for why Borushiki appears in the future scene that Kashinkoji ends up seeing, leaving us with the final reason. And this reason is by far the scariest one. Momoshiki's reason for appearing is simple. He is making moves to ensure that he can take Kawaki out in a blink of an eye when he finally receives full access to Boruto's body. And by understanding how this fight will go, we will come to understand what is likely to happen afterwards. But for us to do that, there is one very important ability we need to talk about: True Essence Karma and what exactly it does. Because the question is simple: why do we see Kawaki use the horn state in the future scene, even though throughout the entire time in the timescape we haven't seen Kawaki use this horn state at all? It is actually to the point where some people believe that this ability was retconned. I personally never believed this. I always expected this ability to return, and now that it is back, this is the perfect opportunity for us to get a better understanding of Karma's true essence. But did you realize what I just did there? By simply changing the wording from True Essence Karma to Karma's true essence, an entirely different meaning can be derived. Everybody views True Essence Karma as a simple transformation or a form that people can tap into that possess the karma. However, when we look at how it is actually explained, that is not what we are told. When we look at it from the wording Karma's true essence, the question becomes, what is the true essence and purpose behind the karma, especially from a fighting perspective? Code gives us the answer to this. He explains, Karma's true essence is the Otsutsuki's combat experience accumulated over millennia that gets overlaid upon the mind and body. That's why you get stronger. In short, you instantly become a seasoned warrior if you are able to draw on the karma properly, that is. The most important factor being discussed here is how well a person with the karma is able to utilize and draw upon the karma. To draw upon the karma is to draw upon the Otsutsuki's accumulated experience, which represents that Otsutsuki's essence. Karma is essentially a backup file that contains the essence of an Otsutsuki, allowing the user to gain additional power. Using the karma is not simply gaining access to your Otsutsuki's abilities, it is tapping into that Otsutsuki's essence, allowing the user to gain their accumulated experience alongside their abilities. The proof of this is found when Boruto utilizes True Essence Karma for the first time. Everyone in that fight believes that Momoshiki's consciousness has taken over, but that is not what actually happened. Instead, Boruto is the one in control, and he is tapping into Momoshiki's essence at such a high level that it appears as if Momoshiki has taken control of his body. So at the point we are at in the series, and especially after the Code arc, the question is no longer whether Boruto and Kawaki are using True Essence Karma. The real question is, how much of their Otsutsuki's essence are they using at a given moment? The horn state that we refer to as Boroshiki and Kawashiki is simply when Boruto and Kawaki are tapping into their Otsutsuki's essence at the highest level, to the point where they start displaying features of that Otsutsuki itself. The proof of this comes from two logical explanations. The first one is based exactly on what Code tells us about Kawaki when he is using True Essence Karma with his horn state. When Boruto uses True Essence Karma, people confuse him with Momoshiki because of how much of Momoshiki's essence he is drawing upon. When it comes to Kawaki, it is the same. He taps into his karma's true essence to the point where horns appear around Kawaki. Code says that Amato is attempting to create a second version of Ishiki. This tells us that when Kawaki is in his horn state is when he is tapping into Ishiki's essence to an extreme degree, which is why he is directly compared to Ishiki himself. Everything about Kawaki at that point is exactly like Ishiki, which is why we see Code directly tell us that this is a second Ishiki. The reason why at this point Kawaki is tapping into close to all of Ishiki's essence is because when Momoshiki uses True Essence Karma, he gains horns. Momoshiki has the greatest understanding out of all these three characters, Boruto, Kawaki, and Momoshiki. Momoshiki possesses the greatest understanding of how to utilize his own power and essence. So it makes sense that when he appears, he is using the majority of his essence, if not all. From this, we can infer that Kawaki, who is in a similar state to Momoshiki due to both of them having horns when they go into this state, because of this, we can infer that he is tapping into nearly all of Ishiki's essence. So the way we should look at this is not through the idea that Boruto does not have the same karma pattern that he had in chapter 64, meaning that Boruto is not using True Essence Karma if he doesn't look the same as he did in the past. That interpretation does not accurately follow the explanation that we are given in the manga. Instead, we should view True Essence Karma as an existing scale, with the user accessing different levels of their Otsutsuki's essence depending on how much they draw upon the karma. Now the question everybody is going to ask is why have Boruto and Kawaki basically never used the full extent of Ishiki's essence or Momoshiki's essence in the time skip especially? Why didn't Kawaki use it against Jira or any other enemy that they have fought? There are multiple possible answers to this question. One explanation applies specifically to Boruto, while another explanation applies to both Boruto and Kawaki. When it comes to Boruto specifically, the explanation could be very simple, is that Momoshiki has not allowed him to fully tap into his essence. Momoshiki is the person who we should now understand holds the most control over the karma. We see this literally in the fact that Boruto is revived by Momoshiki controlling the karma in a way that he controlled what exactly the karma was used on. Instead of being used for his body, it was used for resurrecting Boruto. This is also the reason why Boruto has to beg Momoshiki for access to the karma and essentially sell his body to Momoshiki, because Momoshiki is the person who holds all the power. Even in the scene where we have Momoshiki explain to Boruto that he is going to give him all of his abilities, without Boruto even activating the karma for himself, Momoshiki is the one that gives the karma to Boruto, and then we see the karma light up. We see a similar situation to this against Team 10, where Momoshiki forcefully awakens the karma for Boruto because he wanted Boruto to kill all of Team 10 and he would take over his body. This is why when Boruto even attempts to use the karma and Momoshiki doesn't want him to, Boruto feels as if he is dying because Momoshiki wanted to die at this time and be rid of this world. This is a possible explanation as to why Boruto has not been able to fully tap in to his karma. However, another explanation applies to both Boruto and Kawaki. The first explanation explains to us why Boruto can't use the karma until we have Momoshiki who lets him use it, but this explanation explains why even in the fight that we see Boruto and Kawaki have in the Hokage monument, Boruto and Kawaki are not tapping into True Essence Karma at the highest level. It is still True Essence Karma, but we see that the patterns is not the same in the Code Arc. The reason that this is the same is because they have not fully mastered or understood how to tap into True Essence Karma. This would explain why they are only able to access higher levels of their Otsutsuki's essence during moments of extreme emotion, like we have seen in the past. And this actually makes sense when we look at how Kawaki learned how to use the karma and how he explains to Boruto how to use it. When Boruto asks Kawaki how to absorb ninjutsu, Kawaki cannot provide a real explanation. Instead, he simply tells Boruto to do it and provokes him until he finally succeeds. The same thing happens with Boruto when he wants to bring everybody back to the village after the Ishiki fight. Kawaki does not explain to Boruto the mechanics behind the karma. He simply gets Boruto angry, pushes him emotionally until he's able to activate space-time ninjutsu. This is because Kawaki does not have a systematic understanding of the karma in the way the Otsutsukis would. And to be honest, this makes sense because of how we know Kawaki trains, or lack thereof of training. Kawaki does not go through a traditional training process where he learned about chakra control, slowly developed an understanding of chakra and all its properties. His relationship when it comes to the karma was built around simple survival. His mindset was essentially this: I hate the person who is beating me up, I want to survive, I want to kill him. Boom! Through this emotion, he is able to draw upon the karma and he uses the power against Ishiki. That's how we see them train. This is how Kawaki has learned how to use the karma. It has been through battle, through pure desperation, and an instinct to survive. And this is the same training method that he even wanted Team Sen to utilize to gain stronger, because this is all he knows. There was never a systematic approach to understanding the karma. So for Kawaki to consistently access more of Ishiki's essence, especially to the level where his horns end up appearing, the only way that Kawaki is going to do it is not through training, but it's going to be through more battles where he experiences it more for himself and naturally comes to control his powers. This has been a core part of Kawaki's character. The guy struggles with basic chakra control and we now expect him to instantly master the full essence of an Otsutsuki? That would not make sense. In addition, we have multiple different characters, including Amado and Kashinkoji, who have told us that certain Otsutsuki abilities require time to master. The karma is an Otsutsuki ability, and thus it requires time, just like the other abilities that we have seen. A clear example of this is with Otsutsukis and the fact that they are capable of flying. By the end of part 1, Boruto and Kawaki were already considered full Otsutsuki by code, but it is only after the time skip that we see them gain the ability to fly. Amado told us that they would eventually be able to do so, but why do they not do it immediately after becoming full Otsutsuki? The reason this is the case is because it takes time for these abilities to naturally develop in the Otsutsuki. They live longer lives when it comes to humans, thus it is likely that they have certain adaptations that may take longer when we compare it to humans, but instantly provide an advantage to the Otsutsuki. We also learn from Kashinkoji that Boruto would awaken space-time ninjutsu in the future, but Kashinkoji explains to Boruto that he would need time before these abilities come to be, and thus it was circumvented using the Flying Raijin. So it is clear that these abilities are not something that you get instantly and you're able to use it perfectly. They require time, they require experience, and they require a level of understanding. That's why one of the big advantages of True Essence Karma is the experience that these Otsutsuki have developed over millennia. So yes, of course, there will be moments where these characters randomly pull off incredible feats and use a lot of their Otsutsuki's essence, but for them to use it consistently, it requires a level of mastery that we simply have not seen Kawaki or Boruto showcase. Momoshiki, on the other hand, whenever he pops in, he is using True Essence Karma at an incredibly high degree. So with all this being said, it makes sense why we see Kawaki tap into Ishiki's full essence when Boroshiki appears. Whether this is because of everything this moment represents and the flashbacks that Kawaki must be having to when Naruto was taken down, the promise where he had to kill Boruto, or it is because of some type of karma resonance. Whatever it is the case, it allowed Kawaki to reach a level that we haven't seen him reach in quite some time. So how will this battle actually go? To understand that, we first have to analyze exactly how strong Boroshiki and Kawashiki will be. Starting off with Boroshiki. Technically, you might think that Boroshiki should only be as strong as Boruto, because Momoshiki himself is now weaker than Boruto, meaning his experience should not provide much of an increase. However, this way of thinking is not accurate at all, because the karma's true essence has much more nuance. First, I know that some people might disagree with the idea of Boruto being stronger than Momoshiki, but based off what we have seen, base Boruto is already stronger than fused Momoshiki. And this does not cover the theory of potentially Momoshiki holding back so that he can take Boruto's body. That is only a theory, so I can't use a theory to confirm a fact. So based off the facts that we have seen, fused Momoshiki is the strongest version of Momoshiki that we have ever seen before. and he was defeated by Naruto and Sasuke. Meanwhile, Naruto and Sasuke were unable to defeat Jigen, and they were embarrassed. Code has already been stated to be stronger than Jigen by Damien and multiple other characters including Amato. Boruto himself acknowledges the strength that Code has, and Code ends up being beaten by Boruto. This means that Boruto in base has already surpassed Fused Momoshiki in raw power. However, the situation changes when Momoshiki gains access to Boruto's body and enters the Boroshiki state with the horns. This is the highest level of tapping into Momoshiki's essence, and this is something Boruto himself has not been able to do at all. So even when he tapped into Momoshiki's essence in the past, he has never been able to manifest the horns by himself. Meaning that this Boroshiki that we see is the strongest version of Boruto using the karma, including the Boruto in this recent arc that tapped into Momoshiki's powers, because at the time he did not need to tap into much of Momoshiki's full essence against these weak Momoshi clones. But there is also another factor that people are overlooking when it comes to Boroshiki's actual strength. Even though Momoshiki is weaker than Boruto in terms of raw power, when we look at battle experience, the difference is astronomical. Boruto still struggles with things like chakra control and using his sword against stronger opponents. Momoshiki does not have those same weaknesses because of his experience. Boruto only has 3 years of swordsmanship experience, while Momoshiki has thousands of years of experience after absorbing Kinshiki, and potentially Momoshiki could have been using weapons in the past, but we don't know that, so I won't use it as fact. But the difference between 3 years and millennia, thousands of years, is an impossible gap for Boruto to naturally overcome. Unless Boruto himself obviously learns how to fully tap into Momoshiki's entire essence, which he's most likely going to be able to do very soon. But this difference in experience is why Karma's true essence does not have a fixed power level. It can be amplified and can be better used when the person who has the Karma is already very strong. Its effectiveness depends on the difference between the vessel's own experience and the Otsutsuki's own experience. And since Boruto started off as a human and Momoshiki has always been an Otsutsuki, the amount of experience an Otsutsuki and a human will have will simply never be the case. So the karma will always be beneficial to Boruto, and tapping into all of Momoshiki's essence will always make Boruto stronger due to the experience that is attached with it. Since Momoshiki is able to access his full essence in Boruto's body, this will be the strongest version of Momoshiki that we have ever seen. This Boroshiki state is going to be a lot stronger than anything we have seen, exactly because Boruto's base is that strong. So he will have access to all of his abilities. And it has already been confirmed that the Karma now possesses the amplification jutsu that Momoshiki has, meaning that any technique that Kawaki is to use or anybody that Boroshiki ends up facing is going to be thrown back at them with far more power if they are ninjutsu based. There is also the possibility that we get to see Momoshiki use his summoning ability, which could be the moment where we actually see the village be destroyed due to the simple damage that occurs by all of the random summonings that Momoshiki can pull out. Now, when it comes to Kawaki, the situation is much more straightforward. Kawashiki should at minimum be stronger than Ishiki, because he has access to Ishiki's essence, while also having an 100% offensive power boost that Ishiki simply could not have consistently had. This version of Kawaki should be the strongest version of Kawashiki that we have ever seen. So this fight would be versus the strongest version of Borushiki that we have ever seen and the strongest version of Kawashiki that we have ever seen. Now, who do you think will actually win? In my opinion, if this fight ends up happening, I believe that Boroshiki would win. And it goes back to what Momoshiki said about Kawaki. Momoshiki states that when he takes control of Boruto's body, he would destroy Kawaki in a blink of an eye. Personally, I don't believe that this fight will end quickly, but Kawaki's biggest weakness in this fight especially is his defense. If Kawaki cannot defeat Momoshiki immediately, that will become a problem. We have already seen Kawaki gas out like crazy in the Momoshi fight, and he had 85% offense and 15% defense. Now that it will be 100% offense and 0% defense, Kawaki could gas out pretty early. And when we know that Momoshiki has access to abilities like the Rasengan and the Vanishing Rasengan, if Momoshiki lands one well-placed attack, it could be a complete change to the fight, and it could leave Kawaki unable to properly continue this fight, making Momoshiki the winner. The only advantage Kawaki has is that I do believe that he is stronger when it comes to his raw power. But the question is, will his defense be enough to survive Momoshiki's overwhelming arsenal? Personally, I do not think so. Momoshiki's experience, his abilities, and his understanding of the karma gives him too many different advantages. And to see all the various abilities that Momoshiki could potentially utilize in this fight and have access to, you have to watch this video right here.